we need to make one of these. It's this stud that holds the gear quadrant onto this bracket on a Myford ML7 lathe. I didn't have this exploded diagram when I first started recording. I only got it later when I started editing this video, so I didn't realise at the time that it was just a straightforward stud, as we will see. It's a stud for holding the gears onto a Myford ML7 lathe body. It's pulled the thread from this end. It's still okay this end, but we need to make a whole new one. This needs to be exactly the same. We need to make this with a larger thread so that I can tap a larger hole into the body of the lathe. There's obviously threaded part here, shoulder here, threaded part here, but there's also a short bit here with a, I'm not sure if you can see that on camera, but there's two flats here to grip it by so that we can screw it into the body of the lathe. So I'm just going to draw it out and take some measurements. Overall, we'll go for 35mm. Actually, I might go for slightly less because that end is really close to the gears when it's in position. I'll make that 25 because I'm going to be 1mm shorter. Now this is hard to work out because it's been crushed and is kind of out of shape. So there's going to be a certain amount of guesswork here. I'm going to make that 3mm. Maybe less. I'm not sure if they are flats or whether they've just been crushed into the groove. They might actually have just been crushed in, and that may have been threaded all the way. Maybe these aren't flats after all. In which case... Oh, is that the stud in there? Perhaps that's the stud inside there. I wonder if I can get that off. Let's have a look. That does seem to be turning separate. Yep. So perhaps this was a helicoil in the body. Seems to be. Okay, that changes things. Well, no it doesn't. I just need to make that. Well, we'll just make something similar to this. 33.75, so let's make it Let's make it 33.5 overall, because there's plenty left stuck out on this end once we've put it in place. These are going to be the same. Yeah, so all we need is the depth of that. We'll make that 7mm. So here to here, 7mm. It doesn't need this shoulder, so that can be threaded all the way up, as we'll be turning that in, and as we do the nut up, that will simply pull that in anyway. Okay, so that is 6.22. So diameter quarter of an inch, as it's imperial. We might have to make that in metric. I think we'll make that an M6. M6. And the other end was an M10. We're going to have to go bigger, so I'm going to make that an M12. Okay, we need a piece of steel. This will probably do. Plenty big enough. Plenty long enough. Okay, here we are at the lathe. Let's make ourselves a part. So we need to make sure we've got at least 33.5mm available. Plus a bit so I don't crash into the chuck. That'll do, about there. Okay. Let's measure 33.5. We'll mark that. I know, you really shouldn't do it that way. Okay. We're at about 600 RPM. I'll just face this off. We'll get rid of that little bit later on. So we need to go up to our mark, and the big end is going to be a 12mm thread, so we need to get the whole thing down to 12mm. What are we at the moment? We are currently at just over 19. So let's zero our counters. I don't know if you can see that from here. Let's move you down a little bit. Okay. Right. Touch off there, and we'll reset to 0. We'll also touch off on the end, and reset to 0. So we have our zeros, and we now need to cut along 33.5 millimeters. Do that. I'm just going to let the power feed take it along for us. $20, $25, $30, $31, $32, $33, $33.5. Okay. And now it's just a case of keep going until we get to 12 millimeters. Now on this lathe, every 10 of these will take 0.25 millimeters off the radius, or half a millimeter off the diameter. So we should already, when we've done this pass, have taken 1.5 millimeters off the diameter. We'll just check where we are. $17. Let's double check. $17. $16. $13.8. Getting close. $13.3. I'll take more regular measurements now as we get closer. 12.69. Okay, let's switch over to the micrometer. We are at 10, 11, 12, 12.5, 12.6. Not bad. So we need to go down 0.6. I'll take slightly lighter cuts now so we don't overshoot. $12.31. 12.15. Not sure if you can see that there. Yep, there we are. We're 2/100ths under. But that's okay. Can you see that there? I'm not sure you can see that. There you go. So, that's the 12mm section. And we need to leave 7mm of that at that end. And then cut the 25mm down to 6mm. So, here we go again. .7. Okay, we'll take some lighter cuts now as we get close. Yeah, just under 6, shade under. That's close enough. Okay, now what I realise I haven't done is left myself enough room to part this off. I need the parting tool to part off here, but this is quite thick to get through. What I'm going to do is turn this bit down to this diameter, 12mm, and then that's easier to part off. So we'll just pull this out a little bit more and turn a little bit more of this down. Okay, that's close enough. It's not a critical dimension, I just needed to get it down to make it easier to part off. Okay, so we'll swap the tool out. And we'll put our parting tool in. And I'm going to make sure we're parallel with the chuck. Okay, and I'm going to line that up right at the edge where we need to be. I need to lock down the carriage, so we'll lock that. Wrong size. You can't even see what I'm doing. Hold on. That's better. Okay. I'm happy we're in the right position there. So I'm going to lock the carriage. So that's it, we can't move left or right. We're going to slow down for this. Plenty of oil, and we'll go gently. I need to check that we're on centre. Let's try again. That's not feeling right. What's happening there? Ah, I see what's happening there. Not sure if you can see here. The tip of my tool is chipped. That's why it's not cutting well. Okay. Hacksaw it is. Let's just tidy that up. I think we'll just put a ever so slight bevel on that to help us when we do the threads. Can I get close enough? Just about. So, we need to cut the thread. I think the best thing we can do is cut the small thread, because I don't want to be gripping on that when it's got a thread on it. Now, if I'd really thought about this, I'd have cut the threads while it was still part of the bigger piece. However, let's get this in here. Let's just see how central it is. Not bad. We're not spinning it in the chuck, we're just using the chuck to hold it while we cut the thread. I brought my chuck in so that we can hold the die square to the part. Here's my die. Here's my die holder. Marvel at how it's the wrong size, but it works. It's not ideal. Okay, I'll put some cutting oil on here and on here. And then what we'll do, bring the chuck up here, and that means that we're nice and square. Let's put a tiny bit of pressure on that and start to cut. Now, what I didn't do was mark how far down we need to cut the threads to. So let's just check that. Now, the threads need to be 15 millimeters long. Okay, nearly there. Perfect. Okay, that's good. Now we need to cut 12mm thread on the other end. So we're now cutting a 12 by 1.75 thread on the other end. We're not going to grip it too tightly because we don't want to damage the thread. Now I don't have a cam lock for my tailstock, so I have to do it up with a spanner, which is really annoying. But that's a project for another day. Bit more tapping oil. I might need to cut more of a bevel on here. Let's just do that. Let's see how that feels. Double check our measurements. Yeah, we're at 12. Well, let's give it another try. Well, that feels slightly better. Although it doesn't necessarily feel like it's cutting. No. No, it hasn't cut in the slightest. Okay. I need a different tap. This one is made of Chinesium and is rubbish. Okay, I need a new die, but I don't have one, so I've got to order one. So, time to tidy up for today. Right, the next thing we need to do is just take a slight bevel on this edge. It's a very sharp start to the thread. It would be nicer if it was a little bit smoother. So I'm just going to cut a slight bevel on the edge of that. I'll just run the die down it just to make sure that the thread starts okay. The next thing we need to do is to tap this end with an M12 thread. The last threading operation I tried didn't work because this die was rubbish and basically just didn't cut anything. I think it's made of cheese. So I now have a new die, and this is a round one rather than a hex one, so I'll need to put it in a different holder. I've actually got a tailstock die holder, so we'll use that. The other thing you need to know about dies is they've got a slight taper to the cutting surfaces, so as we're only cutting a small thread, the thread will have a slight taper. So once we've run that on, I'll actually turn that round and run it on the other way to make sure we cut the thread all the way up that. So the die goes in the die holder. We'll mount that in the tailstock, and then that can cut a thread and move along as it needs to. Just means it's going to keep square to the work. I'll lock the tailstock. And your cutting oil. And we'll start cutting. I'm struggling to grip this tight enough to cut the threads. I don't want to ruin the thread on here. So I will get a piece of tin can and use that to grip it tighter. Right, I have a small piece of drinks can, and I'm just going to wrap that around the thread just to protect the thread so I can hold it in the chuck a bit harder. What we'll do, as this is a split die, so it has a split, we can loosen these off a bit, and we can actually force that apart. just to open up the hole ever so slightly. That's better. Feels like I'm actually cutting a thread. Although we're still slipping at the end there. I don't think I can tighten this chuck anymore. I can feel it cut the smallest bit and then slip. Let's see how far we've got. Not bad. Now, I'm not sure if you can see on the camera, but I can certainly see that there's a taper to that thread. So I just want to run that in one more time and then we'll flip it round. So we will take the die out and turn that round. I seem to have got about as far as I can get. Let's just try opening this up a little bit more. Right, I'm going to turn it round again and open it up even more. So I'm going to open that up. That's about as far as it will go. See if we can get that to go all the way off the end. It's going on there much easier. Okay, it's tightening up now. That's it. That's where we got to. Feels like it's cutting. That's it. We got there. Okay, now we'll flip it round and run the other end all the way up. Yep, we're cutting there. That's it. We've made it. Okay. So we'll just come back off and then we'll loosen the split right off. Yeah, that's already much tighter. That's it. We're there. Come back off. Well, as you can see, I've ruined the threads. We'll have to make another one. Now I've realised why we ruined the last part. I had the lathe in the wrong setting. Now, I learnt this trick from Blundy Hacks. Right, we have a new piece here, and what I've decided we're going to do is we're going to cut the 12mm thread first, because that's the one that is hardest to cut and requires the most grip on the part. So at the moment we've got an uncut thread on the other end, so we can grip that really hard. We can cut the 12mm thread, then we can flip the part round, hold that with a piece of tin, but it won't need so much holding on that to cut the 6mm thread. So same as before. That's it. There we go. So that's the 12mm thread cut. Now we've got to flip the part around and then cut the 6mm thread. And hopefully, as that's not going to put so much stress on the part, I can hold that in some sort of soft tin jaws and cut the 6mm thread. Let's see what happens. Now I'm not going to grip that really tight because we don't need quite so much pressure to cut an M6 thread. So let's get my M6 die and we'll get that ready. Now as before, I'm using the wrong size die in this holder, but it works. So we'll cut a thread. Now we don't need to go all the way down. There's a bit of a shoulder on this, and I think I went 15mm on the other one. Now let's just see roughly where that is. It's not critical that this goes to 15. Okay, so just before that last scratch mark. Yep, that's spot on. Yep, there we go. Here we are with the part. There's the part. And the next thing we're going to do is we are going to cold blue it, which should turn it from looking like something I made in my little workshop to a more professional part. So I have some cold blue, Philips Professional Cold Blue, and you mix that. It's a 3-to-1 mix, so 1 part cold blue to 3 parts water, which is what we've got in here. Then we have to degrease the part. Now I don't have any acetone, so I'm just using isopropyl alcohol. I'll give this a really good clean down. The better you degrease it, the better the cold blue process takes. Then I'm just going to drop that in the cold blue. And we are going to give it a good brushing, agitate it for quite a while. It's already gone pretty black. We'll keep going for a while just to make sure it's well coated. Well, that looks pretty good. I'm just going to go and rinse the part off just in cold water so that it stops the bluing process, and then I'll come back and we'll oil it. Right, you wait there. Okay, we have rinsed this off. I'll just give it a dry. And then we'll give it a covering in oil. There we go. And we have to leave that for about an hour for it to absorb. So I'll bring you back in an hour. Well, here we are about an hour later, and this part's looking pretty good. I'll just wipe it down and then I'll show you. There we go. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. Hope you found it interesting. And thanks for watching.